Hello there, what is going on, everybody? Ministravaganza is just a few days away. We are about to get a ton of information for Star Wars Legion as well as Shatterpoint and Marvel Crisis Protocol. We also have the schedule of events. We're going to be doing a watch party. I'm going to talk all about that and what I think we're going to see. This is going to be a very exciting video. If you guys are new here to the channel, couple of things. For one, don't miss this Saturday's live stream. You can watch on Atomic Mass Games' Twitch channel. We're also doing a live stream watch party right here on this channel as well. We're going to start probably about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, which should be about 9:30 Pacific. This is about a half an hour before everything is going to start. We'll go through all this stuff. We'll do some giveaways during the stream to kind of keep the hype going, and then we'll kind of do a wrap up afterwards. Also, we're doing 12 Days of Life Day. Also, this basically my holiday giveaway that I do every December. 12 times during the month of December, we're going to have some surprise giveaways. If you want to have a chance to enter to win one of those, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. It's as simple as that. So those are the big two admin things. Also, definitely check out the links in the description below. If you are thinking about checking out some great foam or Magna racks, head over to battlefoam.com. They have amazing stuff. I'm sure you've already heard of Battlefoam. They're pretty much like the golden standard when it comes to foam and traveling, and their Magna racks have kind of revolutionized the industry. I've used them for quite a while. But I have a discount code that you can save 15% if you're interested in checking out some Battlefoam products to protect all of your minis as you travel to tournaments and stores and conventions and whatnot. It's Crabbok VIP. There's a link in the video description below. Don't forget that one, especially if you're trying to save some money on our holiday purchases. Also, tell your loved ones to use that code so they can save some money on their gifts for you. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the new information. Atomic Mass Games has published their schedule for Ministravaganza, and it is going to be this Saturday, November 15th, and the times here are in Pacific Standard Time. However, I'm on the East Coast, so I will be talking about these. Add 3 hours to each of these if you're on the East Coast, or if you're anywhere else in the world, do your own conversions. But I think East Coast is like GMT -4 right now. We just changed times because we change times twice a year because we're just random and there's no reason for it. And my dogs don't know the difference. And people with pets and babies don't like time changes. I'm just saying, it's because nobody else cares, right? So they're starting things off with Shatterpoint. Then they're going to be doing Marvel Crisis Protocol, and then they're going to be doing Star Wars Legion. Presumably, it's an hour for each. There may be a little break in between, but that is definitely the roadmap. Now, I'm going to talk mostly about Star Wars Legion in this video, what I think we're going to see, but I'll talk a little bit about the other two. For one, it is surprising to me that they're spending a whole hour on Shatterpoint, because I feel like Shatterpoint has been very, very light as far as new content. There have been a lot of reports that saying it's not doing as well as the other games. It's still being played. It's just I don't think it's doing as well as they had anticipated. At Adepticon, there wasn't very much new things added for Shatterpoint, so I think they'll talk a little bit about. I expect them to talk about like the some of the stuff like the Balin Skull and the Ahsoka, the new things that they announced at Adepticon. I expect them to preview those a little bit, and maybe some new product, maybe not new product, maybe new rules updates, or maybe like kind of a product line update and where Shatterpoint stands and what they're playing, because they're also doing roadmaps for the future. It's not just new product announcements. It's like the whole roadmap. It's basically the whole state of the game. It's basically the equivalent of what they would do at Adepticon, but they're giving an hour to each. Shatterpoint probably will have the least amount of actual content, and I think that's why they're doing it first, so this way they can also have their like opening ceremonies kind of lumped in with that. And then an hour later, we're going to get Marvel Crisis Protocol. I do expect a lot from Marvel Crisis Protocol. MCP is doing pretty well. From everything that I can tell, it seems like it's doing well. It's a fun game. I enjoy it. I don't get to play it as much as I'd like, but it is a very fun game. I think they have a lot of new starters coming out. They've already talked a little bit about some of the things. I think there's some news with the X-Men products and the X-Men starters that they're going to talk about that. My main prediction for this is I'm hoping to see the Fantastic Four. They've got to announce them at some point. And I do think that we're going to see Fantastic Four announced here at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. PST, not p.m. This is in the morning. This is early, or afternoon if you're in the East Coast. And then at noon Pacific, which is what, noon 1, 2, 3. Because we're gonna be starting this at about 12:30, because 10, 11, 12, 1, right? So 1 p.m. is when the actual stream will start. If you're on the East Coast, I'm going to start about a half hour prior to that, 12:30. I'll share links in my social media stuff. If you're in my Discord, or if you follow any of my socials, you'll get links for those as well. But I'll be streaming right here on the channel, and we'll just have a watch party. The fun thing is to hang out, talk about all the stuff that's happening. Sometimes they don't allow, like, there's been times where, like, the stream would go down, and if you're curious if it's gone down, it's nice to have like another stream going. Is like, are you guys not seeing anything either? Okay, so it's not just me, and then just have a separate chat in case you get muted or timed out for mentioning Armada, like I did that one time, which was kind of funny. But then Star Wars Legion, which is the I think is going to be the biggest one. I think Legion is doing the best out of all three games. And then with their new starters selling out and all that stuff, I'm sure they're going to talk about that. The interesting thing about Legion being last is they can probably run over time a little bit. If they've only allocated an hour to each game, then they can go longer with Legion, because there's nothing else coming up afterwards. So Legion might be like 90 minutes. It might be more than an hour. So they can do however much time they want with Legion. We'll cover all of it, and then we'll kind of follow up a little bit more. And if you don't have a chance to watch, I'll probably be doing like a recap video the following week, which I'll try to summarize. I might summarize the other two games as well, but I'll definitely be talking a little bit more about the Legion content than everything else, because that's the one that I typically cover here on the channel the most out of their three games. I was kind of excited, or wondering if they were going to announce any like big news, like, hey, a certain game is not going to be mained anymore, or there's gonna be a new game coming out. There's some rumors that there may be new ways to play certain games, like Marvel Crisis Protocol might be getting like a 4-player mode. Shatterpoint might be getting some, like, I think there's new rules updates and things like that coming out for that. I'd love to see some Grand Army rules for Star Wars Legion, but Legion has a lot of different modes of play right now, between Spec Ops and Recon and their new campaigns, and of course the standard tournament format as well. The Tour of Duties, which they just announced recently, is what I mean when I say the campaigns. There's a lot for Legion for them to talk about. I want to give you guys some predictions on things that I think we're going to see them mention for Legion. We'll see how many I get right. Also want you guys to leave your predictions in the comments section below. We'll see how many we get right here. First off, I say it every time, but it's got to be Gungans, right? This has got to be mini Gunganganza. How would you incorporate the word Gungan into Ministravaganza? Ministravagungan? Gungan Stravaganza? Mini Gunganganza? Mini Gungan Strava? Misa Gunganganza? I don't know. I think there's a million ways you can do it. Point is, I think Gungans, I think they were actually supposed to be out already. There was probably some kind of art or licensing or other administrative holdup. I think they put them in the art for the rule book when they came out with the new edition for Star Wars Legion, and I think there was multiple pieces of Gungan art that we saw when they were prepping all of this stuff, and it just didn't get announced. I thought for sure it was going to be announced during the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, and it just seemed like Phantom Menace was a big deal, and it would have been the perfect time to kick off, the Gungan invasion. But it did not happen yet. Who knows if it's ever going to happen? It has to. I think they've confirmed multiple times that it's definitely in the pipe. It's just when. Never been a better time than right now. So that's what I'm thinking. Thinking we're going to see this. But again, and if it doesn't happen, Misa gonna be so sad. But if it does happen, I might do some boss nass and go Misa like a this. You never know. You never know if I'm gonna say that or not. Even though I literally just said it, so I'm sure somebody's gonna clip that and do something with it. I don't know. I gotta be careful what I say and do on this channel. But let's move on to other predictions, because if you followed me for a while, you know I'm looking forward to Gungans. You've heard me talk about Gungans until I was blue in the face, or I don't know. I don't know what color they are. Beige in the face. I'm already kind of that color anyway, especially after doing the Boss Nass impression. let's go on to some other things. Now, they did already announce Mud Troopers were coming from Solo, those Imperial Army grunts that we saw. They're obviously going to talk more about those. I do think that it's a perfect opportunity to introduce Enfys Nest and her Marauders. I think they're absolutely going to be coming to Star Wars Legion sooner rather than later, since they're doing some stuff from Solo, a Star Wars story again, and also like from a certain point of view, I feel like it's probably an easier push to push content from like the newer films, because they're more current. They're more, it's more of a like a, I don't know, maybe an ego thing. It's probably easier for Disney and licensing and LFL to like be like, hey, like, yeah, make more stuff from our newer stuff. Yeah, by all means, maybe you can sell more merch or whatever. I don't know, but it's also probably more current in a lot of people's minds because this movie is still like semi-recent. But the main reason I think it would be cool is because they just look awesome. Enfys Nest is a cool looking character. This would be a really fun one for people to paint up. Also, with the inclusion of mounted heroes, their whole claim to fame is that they mounted and they'd fly in on their bikes and stuff. They're like a biker gang, right? And so you can do mounted folks here. You could even have a whole battle force of them. They are totally like an early faction of the rebellion. And they don't have to be rebellion. They could be mercs that work with the rebellion. They could be rebellion-aligned mercenaries, or they could just be straight-up rebels. There's a lot of ways you could do it, depending on what makes the most sense in the game. They could have a battle force, or they could just be straight-up rebels. There's a lot you could do there, and so I think that'd be really cool. A lot of people who are complaining about the Pathfinders being taken away. I think this is a great time to bring them back, because they did definitely suggest that Pathfinders were just going away in their current form. Well, look, we need Baze and Chirrut also. There's a lot of stuff, like Rogue One was never complete without Baze Malbus and Chirrut Imwe. So, bring them back. Pathfinders they only had two heavies, two unique heavies. There's no generic heavy. You couldn't run 3 Pathfinders each with a heavy. You couldn't do that. Never felt right. You also have Melshi from Andor. Never been a better time to bring in stuff from Andor, which is very current, and like Andor Season 2 being like one of the best seasons of television history, regardless of whether or not it's Star Wars, is just phenomenally good, right? So let's bring on Melshi, bring on Baze and Chirrut. Let's make them a standalone pack, right? And maybe they can like go in as themselves, or they can have little cards also where like, oh, you can also be upgrades. You can be heavies, kind of like Ahsoka. You can have Ahsoka for the Republic as her own thing, or she can go in with some clones and lead them, and then she's a little weaker because she's leading a whole unit. Do something like that with Baze and Chirrut and Melshi, and give different and bring Pow and Bestan back too, and like bring Pathfinders back. Give us, I think it's a time to address that, how they're going to redo Pathfinders. I don't know if they'll have a full expansion announcement, but it'd be cool if they talked about that a little bit in their philosophies for it. Switching up factions a little bit towards the Empire, or maybe Mercs, but certainly Mercs capable of going with Empire. Let's jump to Ahsoka. Other fairly recent stuff. Baylan Skoll should, definitely could show up. Ever since like Palpatine and the Royal Guard's removal, I feel like, hey, they have all the reason in the world to say let's balance that by bringing another Force user to the Empire. And oh gosh, what a beloved character, right? Like, Ray Stevenson did so great with this. Really looking forward to seeing what Ahsoka Season 2 holds, especially with the recasting and all of that. But I mean, you could do Shin Hati, and you could do other characters from Ahsoka Season 1, and then of course with Season 2 just around the way. I wonder if they do him, if they'll do multiple head sculpts. I don't know how all of that is going to work, but it'd be a really cool option to have Baylan Skoll, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it'd be a really fun thing to do. And they've already gotten approval to put him in Shatterpoint, right? So it shouldn't be hard to get him in Legion as well. It works. It just works really well, and it'd be our first kind of orange lightsaber in Legion. Wouldn't that be cool? So that's some of my thoughts. Moving over to the Separatist side, we do know that Savage Opress is coming. He's going to be in a new 4-pack with, Dooku and Asajj Ventress, Savage Opress, who's the mystery 4th person. A lot of people think it's going to be Jango Fett. I've talked about this a couple of times. I've talked about it in my Discord. I've talked about it in live streams. I've talked about it in other videos. There's a couple of options, but Jango Fett is a great option to be in a pack with Dooku, especially when the other people in the pack are Dooku's assassins, Dooku's direct people who worked directly for Dooku. Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress obviously have a connection to Dooku. So does Jango Fett. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that he'd be in this one. It doesn't mean he's absolutely going to be in there. I think Jango is a popular enough character that he could warrant kind of being headlining a whole separate expansion of bounty hunters, Clone Wars era bounty hunters, like totally like Lots Razi and some others that could be in there with Jango. Like it would totally work. There's a lot, or a Sing, a lot of stuff like that. Absolutely could totally work. He doesn't have to be in this pack, but it does thematically make sense that he would be in this pack if you look at his relationship to Dooku compared to everybody else in that pack. And frankly, Jango Fett's long overdue in this game. We've had Boba forever, and that's just going to work. It's just going to make sense. So, yeah, Jango Fett, 100%. And let me know your thoughts. Do you think Jango would be a merc that only works with Separatists, or would he have any other places that he could go? I don't expect he could go anywhere else, but I think that's how he would work. I think he would work as a merc and only be aligned with Separatists. I think that's my prediction. If they do him, so we'll see. Another option I thought that could work in there would be Mother Talzin. Also has a relationship with Dooku, and also has a relationship with Savage Opress and Asajj Ventress. And since they're also in that pack, could easily be Mother Talzin. I'd love to see Mother Talzin show up. I'd love to see a whole Night Sister or Dathomir battle force. I think it absolutely works. I think it would work really well. We haven't seen a whole lot of wars in Star Wars. We see a lot of like tiny little skirmishes and stuff like that. We don't see that many like all-out warfare. Like there's some, and the Clone Wars gave us a couple of interesting ones, and one of them was that siege of Dathomir. And so the Legion should absolutely take advantage of that. With Night Sisters and with Mother Talzin and with Night Brothers and with zombies and all of these other things, archers and dudes with swords and axes and all of it. Dathomir is it's always growing too. You have lots of characters in the game already that would work in that. You've got Maul, you've got Savage Opress, you've got Asajj Ventress, all of which can go into there. And then there's also video game characters from that can also go in there as well, like Marin and things like that. So it really works, and it also especially works with if you wanted to tie in Ahsoka, and you can take all of the Dathomir stuff that's going on in there, and all the zombies and all of that stuff. There's a lot of interesting stuff that all works. Makes a really good case for Mother Talzin to show up. There's a lot that she could be connected to, and in the modern era of Star Wars, we're seeing more of magic working its way, and a lot of it has to do with Dathomir, important planet. We need a Dathomirian battle force eventually. So this is a great time to introduce Mother Talzin. I don't think you would align her with Separatists, but I do think you'd make her a merc that maybe she could work with Separatists. Because she did work with Dooku a little bit. She's kind of friendly with him at the beginning. But not, very much in a trust but verify kind of way. But it could work. But I just also see her. I'd love to see a Battle Force box of just like her and a whole bunch of Night Sisters and Night Brothers and like archers and sword wielding folks and all kinds of stuff like that. Maybe a Rancor. There's so much that could be done. I'd love it. I think it's really cool. I also think Bo-Katan is overdue for Star Wars Legion, and not only just Bo-Katan on her own, but how about more customizable characters? We have seen a lot of popularity with the customizable expansions. I've been doing unboxings of them. You've seen some of mine. If you haven't already, I think I've unboxed all 4 of the customizable ones, one per faction. We need more customizable characters and Mandalorians. I mean, come on, it'd be printing money. Make customizable Mandalorians, build your own Mando. I mean, dude, it's in Fortnite. You can make your own Mando in Fortnite. Let's get it in Star Wars Legion. It makes sense. It'd also be a potential way to add something else to Shadow Collective. They don't have any kind of build your own this, that, and the other thing yet. I mean, granted, you can hobby whatever you want, but they don't have a true customizable Mandalorian warrior. And that'd be a really cool thing to do. I think the kit alone would sell like hotcakes. whether or not, I mean, and you can make, there's ways to put Mandalorians in every faction. They're all over the place. X-Wing did that first. They made Mandos for everybody, because no matter what era you're in, Bo-Katan is there, and she's working for just almost every side except the Empire, right? But there's a Mandos that work for the Gar Saxon, and there's Mandos everywhere. They're all over the place on every side of every conflict. They're always there. Moff Gideon too, we've got him, but we don't have him in his late Mandalorian upgraded armor. So there's more stuff that can all happen with that. Lots of options for build your own Mando. And if we get Bo-Katan also, it's yet another opportunity to include the Darksaber. And it makes me wonder, at what point do we stop making specific Darksabers to specific characters and we just make the Darksaber? I don't know. It'd be really fun, though. Wouldn't that be an interesting thing if there were just everybody got a weapon equipment, or any lightsaber wielder, and I don't know. It would probably complicate things too much, but part of me thinks, wouldn't it be cool if I could just be like, hey, let's trade lightsabers. Yours has extra pierce, but mine has more dice, or something like that. There's a lot of fun things that we could do with that. But I do think they'll probably just continue to make specific versions of the Darksaber for specific characters, and try to make them mostly the same, because not everybody wields it the same way, as we well know if you're all caught up on stuff. All right, moving forward. I got a couple more, not too many more. Inquisitors. We have some Inquisitors in Legion. There's a lot more Inquisitors. Two ways that this could go. We were talking about build your own character for Mandalorians. How about build your own Inquisitor? Customizable Inquisitor would be awesome. Also, the Grand Inquisitor would be awesome. I think there's so many Inquisitors that we keep, and there were enough of them. They had a whole underwater facility, right? There were enough of them that I think it'd be easy for Lucasfilm to be like, yeah, there could be a couple more. If some rich exec has their nephew or whatever that they want to give him a part, and they're like, all right, fine, we'll make him an Inquisitor. They can do that. There's enough room for a couple of extra Inquisitors in just about any story you're trying to tell. So totally stands to reason. Make your own Inquisitor. Totally works. And I think there's a lot of customizable options that we've seen. They typically all have kind of the same lightsaber, but you could also build them where it's just the one, or it's both, or it's in a spinning motion. So you could have the same lightsaber, whether it's one ignition, two ignition, or it's currently spinning. You could even have them hold it up if you wanted to go helicopter, but I don't recommend that. So, but there's also the Grand Inquisitor, who I think there's a spot for him with Palpatine's removal. He's not necessarily going to be the same kind of threat as Darth Vader, but if you are running other Inquisitors, he could have a pretty cool... Maybe he has something akin to pulling the strings, but specifically for other Inquisitors. Things like that. He could kind of fill a little bit of the void that Palpatine left, because he operates in a different way, and it was meant to be a big bad. It was actually a shame that we kind of lost him as soon as we did, because I think it didn't really build him up enough, and he was probably supposed to be a bigger deal than that. But I think we should see more Inquisitors. I think it absolutely works, whether it's the Grand Inquisitor or a build your own Inquisitor, or a little bit of both. You can put both of those in the same box. You can have Grand Inquisitor and +1, or something or +2. A lot of ways you could do that. But talking about the Grand Inquisitor, I'd be remiss if I didn't also talk about the Ghost Crew. Of course, we've got to get the Ghost Crew. I talked to Will Schick about this in an interview a long time ago. Of course, who's not a fan of Star Wars Rebels? They ever since they did the Bad Batch, it gave them a lot of new opportunities on how they want to do other hero units. This is definitely a prime target for another type of unit to get the Bad Batch sort of treatment. We already have Sabine in game, but she's also due for a reprint. And what if her reprint ended up being, oh, surprise, surprise, yeah, Sabine's coming up, but oh, she's going to be in the Star Wars Rebels Ghost Crew box, and the Spectres, or however they want to call it. We should absolutely get this. It really needs to happen, and there's lots of different ways you could run it. It could be such a cool box that has everybody could be an augment, a heavy option somewhere, or you could have a version with Kanan that has counterpart with Ezra. You could there's all kinds of ways you could run these guys and split them up, because they weren't always together as a cohesive crew. Bad Batch is usually always together as a cohesive group. Usually, these guys are always splitting off and going on individual adventures or in groups of two. So wouldn't it be cool if they applied that philosophy to the Ghost crew and said, all right, you know what? Kanan and Ezra also have a team up card where those two will run as an operative, and then maybe Hera and Chopper have one where they go off as an operative or something like that. And maybe maybe you could just pick any two, because a lot of times just about any combination of the two would split up, and then put Rex in there, put Old Man Rex in there too. Oh my gosh, there's a lot you could do there, but then you might have to change Rex's command cards. I don't know. Maybe Rex can wait a little bit, but getting the core Ghost crew together right away would be really cool. And I have one final prediction. I've talked about this in one or two other videos. They have kind of hinted about other factions loosely, and wouldn't it be interesting if they kind of wrap up the show with a slight prelude to other factions coming? Now, I have a graphic of the First Order up here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the First Order, although I do think it would be very cool. I know some of you right now are saying, no, please no sequel trilogy stuff. Please no sequel trilogy stuff. I get that not everybody enjoyed the sequel trilogy. It's very divisive. I understand that people have a lot of opinions for a lot of different reasons. But this is a Star Wars Legion discussion, and so I don't think you have to be a fan of the films to appreciate the way that these guys might look on your tabletop. The way if a unit or characters or a faction would work in a game doesn't have to correlate at all to how much you enjoyed the writing of the films, right? So I think these guys look cool. I think they would definitely work as a faction. They have enough stuff, even in just Episode 7 alone, to warrant an entire faction. They had a complete standing military. They totally work in Star Wars Legion. Not necessarily the Resistance, but the First Order, 100%. Resistance might just be rebels, right? Maybe a couple extra heroes, or maybe it'd be a battle force. I think the Resistance would really work as a battle force. But these guys all work. It just, the whole faction is already there. It's just, what are you going to make first? The only real question I have is, how do you differentiate these guys enough from the Empire? And if they are working on the First Order, which I think would be probably a somewhat safe move. I think people would love to buy. I would definitely buy these guys and paint them up. It'd be a lot of fun. I think it would do well, and I'd be interested to see how they make them different from the Empire. It'd be a fun thing to explore. I'd look forward to it. It could be really interesting. Although I will say I would rather see these guys, because they have these really big walkers in Episode 8. I'd love to see them in a way that we can take advantage of those really big walkers and some of the over-the-top huge vehicles they have, which would mean probably like a 8 or 10 millimeter game where your dudes are only like this big, and this way you can have a big walker and it doesn't fill up your whole tabletop. You can have multiple big walkers, right? Because I don't think we'll ever actually see something like an AT-AT in Star Wars Legion. Not as a movable, drivable, fieldable unit that you can field a couple of them of. I just don't really expect that to ever happen outside of homebrew scenarios. So, again, I don't think the First Order needs those things. They have definitely enough stuff. But it would be pretty cool to see them, get the Star Wars Legion treatment and see how they do them, what's going to come first, and what would be in the opening box. I think Phasma would be a standalone thing. I think it would be Kylo Ren and General Hux in like Wave 1 with lots of different stormtroopers and maybe like the Heavy was that little kind of tank that they're all in the beginning of Episode 7. Like there's definitely options there. I think Phasma would be like a secondary thing. I think you could do some pilots and and then some of the stuff we see later on. There's a couple of the riot control batons and stuff like that. There's definitely a lot of stuff that gets prominence, but there's a lot of stuff in the background as well, and also a lot of stuff from the video games, flame troopers and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So I think other factions is definitely a possibility. It doesn't have to be these guys. It might be the High Republic, might be the Old Republic. There's a lot of different options they could do, and I know every category has its own fan base, and some people just like everything. And some people say, no, I'm only a one-faction player. I'm sticking with my Republic and my Jedi, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it would be cool to see this jump into a new era, because they have hinted at eras and factions and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's at least on the drawing board. It'd be interesting to see if they talk about any of that stuff. But I want to hear your predictions. Again, here are the times in Pacific Standard Time. So this is going to be basically equate to 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be starting at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is, hopefully not too early for most of you. We'll kick off that watch party and we'll have a really good time. So that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know some of your predictions down in the comment section below, and jump in Discord and share some of your thoughts over there as well. Do you think they're going to announce a new game at some point? Do you think, it's been, how many years has it been now for Shatterpoint? I think we're at about the point where I think within a year we'll probably see if they have another game to announce or not. Because at a certain point, I think these companies kind of have to keep new game development coming out eventually, but I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to be here. Another thing is, before I wrap all this up, you notice this is a big departure, right? Like from the way Ministravaganza used to be. It used to be like a 3-day thing with painting streams and gameplay demos, and then kind of live chats and hangouts and stuff. They don't really do painting streams anymore. It seems like they're I wonder if it's like a license agreement has changed where they're just not doing those, because they're not like, this is a really short Ministravaganza, but it's also interesting that they're kind of getting right to the interesting stuff, getting right to it. So it's going to be pretty exciting. All right, watch with me, and that'll do everything for this video. I'll talk to you guys some more tomorrow. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all, and always wash your socks.